Tashdile kung kamsan tiring hlarya ngal geja shiya ge kokap chik chong di kapso nge ani pyo ki lorju ki jabjong dordu chik shebe to ne tene zo nganzu pyo ki pake mayik di ani chungrim tang tate ki nepap kola geja chi sheba yin chiran zambuling di nanglo la geyi mangbo chi yoba nang ne mangbo chi zala do chin simba tang mangbo chi zala ro tang ro simba ki nepap chi re di yin tu diri khatsa nganzu pyo ki ge tang yigi ge nepap di thola geja chi sheba yin ani mutu ne sense naro na.
Today I'm going to talk about endangered languages with focusing especially on Tibetan language, one of Asia's oldest and most culturally significant language. Let's start from the purpose of this presentation. So first I will define what an endangered language is. Second, introduce the history of Tibetan language and its development. Third, I will explain the major threats of faces today. Finally, I hope to show that preserving a language means protecting culture, identity, and human rights, not just a word. Before start, what do you know about Tibet? It's totally new for you?
Yeah, when you start your presentation, I think, okay, I should start and know something.
When we hear a word Tibet, so many people thought like His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama and the Tibetan national animal yak, or Potala Palace and Tibetan Mastiff dog. But these images shows its beauty and the culture, but behind them is also a story of struggle, especially of the Tibetan language. To understand the language, we first need to understand brief about Tibet. So Tibet has fascinated the world for centuries, and it's known as roof of the world because highest and the biggest plateau on the earth. Its average altitude is 14,764 feet above sea level. And also, Tibet is known as third pole of the world because many major rivers, Asian major rivers, source is Tibet country. Understanding this, today's presentation's overview is endangered language focus on Tibetan, origin and development of Tibetan, what makes Tibetan unique and its cultural significance, causes of Tibetan endangered language, why protecting Tibetan language matters, conservation effort, and success stories. So we will begin define the endangered language. According to UNESCO 2023, endangered language is one that is no longer being learned or used by children, putting it at risk of disappearing. So why it disappear? Children stop learning the language, social and political pressure to use dominant the language, and communities move or are relocated. School system replacing local languages, and then loss of communities speakers. Every language is significant. That's why let's explain how language connect with the culture. A leader among the Maori of New Zealand, Sir James Henry expressed, the language is the life force of our Mori culture and mana. If the language dies, as Sam predict, what do we have left to us? So language is closely tied with the identity. The language you speak define you are in a major way. How many languages are endangered? So according to UNESCO 2019, there are more than 7,000 languages exist today. Shockingly, more than 2,000 languages are in trouble, and more than 1,000 languages are dying. One language disappears every 2 weeks. So when language disappear, we lose a unique worldwide history and knowledge. So protecting a language means protecting the identity and heritage of entire community. Since we live in Australia, so it's worth looking example, this country. So before colonization, according to the Productive Activity Commission 2024, there were over 250 indigenous languages and approximately 800 dialects. But current situation, around 150 indigenous languages still speaking, only 14 indigenous languages considered strong and teach in school. This shows how quickly language decline when social or political pressure affect communities. Now focus specifically on Tibetan language. So Tibetan language has a long history. So in this picture, this is the first palace in Tibet, which was built in 2nd century. So when we focus on the Tibetan language, spoken Tibetan exists for at least 2,000 to 2,500 years, approximately 500 BCE, means before Common Era. Written Tibetan developed 13 to 1400 years ago in 7th century during the King Songtsen Gampo, introduced by Tumi Sambota. So based on the ancient Indian Brahmi script used for Sanskrit. What is the current situation? Right? So before Chinese conquest, Tibet, there were 50 distinct Tibetic languages, over 200 dialects, including Tibet and also some part of India, some part of Nepal, and also Bhutan. But now around 60 languages at risk. Many have less than 10,000 speakers and some less than 1,000 speakers. So youth transmission declined or fully stopped. What are the causes? There are some major factors. Tibet was conquered by China in 1950s. Second, China's colonial boarding school system creates Tibet's stolen generation. And mandatory Mandarin education, suppression of language advocacy, closures of private and monastic schools, removal of Tibetan language from exams, restriction of public discourse, relocation, and mixing with the Chinese community. So here are some examples. These are the pictures of closure or demolished schools or monasteries, and these are examples. Nuns and monks, they dispelled and they re-educate communist ideology. they let them wear army's dress. And another major factor is Tibetan stolen generation. Age 4, they take to Chinese boarding school. They separate from family and traditional community. So that's why when they come back home, they lost their own language and they cannot communicate with their children. These lead to rapid language loss. And another one, restriction of public discourse. A Tibetan language banned and replaced with the Mandarin. Tibetan literature, media, and public discourse censored. And teachers, parents, and students encouraged to abandon Tibetan. These create insecurity and confusion about cultural identity. Here, relocation and mixing with the Chinese community. Many Tibetan communities, including nomads, are being relocated into large Mandarin-speaking area. When families are separated and community networks are broken, language and culture become difficult to maintain. So when language becomes invisible in public life, it suffers. Why protecting the Tibetan language matters? It has long history, like about 1400 years old, are Asia's oldest languages. And 7th century script still used today. Preserve Buddhist text, poetry, and tradition. Connect community in Tibet, and also some part of Nepal, and also some part of India and Bhutan. Part of the Tibeto-Burman family important for language study. So include ancient medical and Sanskrit text. Despite the challenges, there is a hope because Tibetan communities continue to preserve their language. As you see in the picture, this is in India, Tibetan school and Tibetan student. All over the world, Tibet in India, Nepal, and other countries, weekend classes pass it to new generation, and also building AI and Google Translate to support language and digitizing Tibetan language. So over 1,500,000 Tibetans around the world wide actively maintain Tibetan language. For the conclusion, Tibet is the heart of its culture and part of the world heritage. Faces challenges, but hope remains. Saving a language is saving identity, culture, history, and human knowledge. So losing 2,500 years of history would be a great loss for world. Before I finish my presentation, I ask two questions. For imagine, like, how would you feel if your own language disappeared? Can digital media help save endangered languages? With this, my references, and thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was very interesting and sad, but very wonderful.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, do Tibetan children here in Australia usually have Tibetan classes?
Yeah, we have a weekend class, so I do volunteer to teach them Tibetan.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're from Tibet?
Yes.
And do you think digital media can help save the language?
I think it helps because even like finish or like totally stop teaching or learning language. But if it is in a digital, then if somebody want to rewrite the language, then there is a base. Yeah, so that's why it helps to maintain language in the future.
And so, would there be like movies or programs that children can watch and listen to in Tibetan?
Inside Tibet, it's quite rare. In 1980s and 1990s, a little bit relaxed. So there many Tibetan create movies or like sort of these things. But now it's more strict. It's very difficult. But we have exile government or Central Tibet in India. So we they work on to protect Tibetan language. They create movies, children's cartoon sort of things, and also for books, etc.
Children are still go to Chinese Education Institute.
Yeah, so before 2000, there were Tibetan monastery schools and also private Tibetan schools. So they teach Tibetan tradition and also Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, Tibetan language. But now slowly they are closing.
Wow.
So everyone have to go to Chinese school.
The colonization stopped, finished. No,
Colonization still, yeah, yeah,
Oh, stay.
yeah.
Oh,
That's
so
why.
it means it's not an independent country.
No, in the 1950, like from 1949 and started, and then 1959 conquered. So that's why our leader Dalai Lama escaped to India, and then he set Tibetan exile government in India.
That's
So we have a parliament in India.
Wow.
We have prime ministers, everything in India.
But the country is actually controlled by
Yeah,
China.
country actually controlled by Chinese government.
Chinese, but all
Good.
This is a very big issue.
Yeah.
This is really big issue. Why I want to talk like this, that why are you worried about your language?
So now they destroy our language, culture, identity. Identity.
Yeah, everything.
But so still we Tibetan, we are alive.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are fighting for that.
yeah,
You have.
Yeah.
we had an experience like the South Korea
Mm.
was taken by Japan, destroyed our language and our culture.
Yeah.
We had the same experience.
Yeah. In the future, I hope we will get independent.
Yeah.
As same as many other countries.
Yeah.
So we have a hope. So that's why we have a right to protect our own language and culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the good news that I think Tibetan language will never be
Endangered?
completely endangered or
Ex-
disappear,
Yeah.
because 6 million people are, for example,
I think so.
yeah. Oh, maybe I'm living in Australia.
But it is very interesting to hear, very interesting for me to hear.
창미 벽이 라 슈갸로낭 드니 미리지기 속잠 미리지기 ngobu 춘진이 계단 얘기니디 임바레 계단 얘기니디 메송와이나 드니 미리디기 ngowoyam 미릭디 아니 잘라도 침바다 아니 체메바다부 차유도 창미 벽이 라 슈갸로낭